had the honor and privilege of working with veterans from World War II to the ongoing war in Afghanistan. His poems have been published in the Rio Review, Red River Review, Windhover Journal, and Old Mountain Press Anthologies. He currently lives in Georgetown, Texas. Mark.
All right, here we go. We're on the clock, baby. So how many veterans do we have in here tonight? Good deal. Have any ACC students in here tonight? Cool. That's what I'm talking about. Some of you know me. I don't know why I wrote this book, to tell you the truth. Why I put it together. It's been an evolution. It's been in progress for a long, long time. But how many of you have seen the movie Black Hawk Down? Okay, a lot of folks think it's a video game. But I was actually there. I was in Mogadishu in 1993. I was there for the entire Black Hawk Down debacle. And I brought a lot of that back with me. To really cut to the chase before I read a little bit, I thought for a long time that everything changed when I came back from Mogadishu. And I finally realized that that's not really true. It's not that everything changed. It's that I've changed. And anybody that's been in combat, that's been in theater, they finally come to that realization that they have changed and they have to adjust. So I'm going to read a little bit and we'll try to find out where we are. My first piece, some of these things are untitled. They're really narratives. Hard to explain how I see it all sometimes. It's like I'm looking at an image of someone looking in a mirror. I don't know if the reflection goes on forever or just as far as my mind allows it to. Perhaps I just don't want to look too deeply. Maybe I'm afraid to admit that the image doesn't really go anywhere. Can't imagine it might get any more quiet here. I have a fairly large house, single story, wide open floor plan, lots of subdued lighting to help me get around it in the evening. Don't care much for illumination, at least literally. Odd though that I don't do well in the dark anymore either. Half of me wants to see, the other half doesn't even want to look, resigned with lying to myself as I've seen it all before. Weather channel's on mute, but the red and yellow radar colors are shrill enough. More storms up north in Oklahoma. Another bright band of miseries rolling into St. Louis. All I know of that city is the airport. Caught me in a MAC flight out of it. Said goodbye to someone there once I never saw again. I still think about that. It's a warm evening. I think I'll move on out to the arbor. A few clouds are slowly passing over, taunting a silver moon. Just enough light to see the shadows. Dark enough to hide from everything else. And for my first poem, I've moved these little numbers around about 50 times trying to find the right one, so if I get the wrong one, you won't know, but. Okay, it's titled Losing It. Hard to forget Mogadishu. Drinking helps. To lose the sand and the stench, flies, four-square circle, RPGs. Don't need mortars either, especially at night. That goes for tracers too. Hell, sometimes I just drink away sword base altogether. Shoot's another matter. Pennsylvania Master Sergeant, hollow miner's eye staring out from beneath his helmet, limping towards me, holding up his hands like an umpire, fist closed in a full count. 10 so far, he gravels, black words collapsing like in banded chat. Maybe more. And if I can flip over here to the next one. It's very still outside, perhaps a lull before a storm. They're forecast this evening. I'm sitting in the backyard practicing long, slow pulls from my sweating bottled beer and watching my tiny hummingbirds dart from flower to flower in search of one more drink before nightfall. Fortunately, I'm not bound by those rules. Trumpet vines are still in bloom, although I'm not so sure how many times my small friends can drink from those wells. I've come to the conclusion that my Bradford pear trees were planted too close together as they're touching branches now. In the grand scheme of things, maybe it was a mistake after all. Some things need to touch one another. Logged 25 running miles this week. My bones feel it. But the running keeps the ghost behind me, at least most of the time. They don't train as hard as I do, so it really irritates me when I find one in front of me after all the hard work I put in. But that's the way of it. You cannot run your past or anyone else's for that matter. Heard this morning that an El Paso soldier was killed in Afghanistan last week. Left behind a wife, 2 kids, a month out from redeploying, ending his 4th combat tour, 1 in Iraq, 2 previous trips in Afghanistan. Lots of clouds in the sky, not quite dark yet. I still hear a few birds. There's a little locust music playing in the background. It strikes me that sitting out here on a humid Texas evening, enjoying a cold shiner while I watch the shadows grow, I can almost convince myself that I don't really miss the days when I was so fortunate to share company with heroes like our forever young Texan. Ah well, wherever you are, count your blessings. Count them now. Don't wait another moment. Kiss your significant other. Hold your child tight. Call someone that you've been irritated at. Take that rusty hatchet and drop it in a hole. Let it go. Let it all go. My next poem. All right, we're on time. Let me see here. I need this. Okay. This was titled Bird on a Wire. After the mortar attack, I decided to check on Private Schoenauer. Skinny, beak-nosed kid with owlish eyes, perched in a plywood cage lined with sandbags atop 2 stacked cargo containers. Taking a last deep drag on the bum Salem, I hauled myself a rung at a time up the guard post ladder to share his bird's eye view of the ruin and rubble across the road. As we stared into the twilight, a truck overflowing with Somalis rattled past our position. One of the riders let loose with his rifle, the rounds ricocheting off the church bell tower behind us. Schoenauer, stammering, asked if I was scared. I wondered if he was a smoker yet. And then I've got another poem here. Problem is I can't really read my little numbers now. So, yeah, I was like, I'm the product of a Midwestern environment. And my father was he was a Korean War veteran. And, you know, everybody is dealt a hand of cards, you know, and how you play them is up to you, and you just take what you've got, and sometimes you hold them, sometimes you fold. Well, he was married 2 weeks, and he got called to the war, and he was shipped over to Korea. And if you know anything about that campaign, the Chosin Reservoir, you would surely appreciate the horrific nature of that war and those people and what those people went through. So he came back, and he never played tennis again, and he never went to college again. And so we grew up with this as the undercurrent of our life. He drank like Prohibition was coming back, and my mother did too. So the next piece is kind of about him. And it's titled Galaxy Christmas. Pop drove a '67 Ford Galaxy 500, an angry-looking profane beast of an auto that attacked potholes and railroad tracks alike. Broken muffler belching obscenities as it rumbled through town to a fertilizer factory where he found work after the war, stacking sacks of ammonia nitrate in boxcars. At night, the place lit up like Christmas. Strings of green and red flashing lights, huge outdoor industrial lamps, reflecting a fine white powder, chemical snow that ate car paint like a slow cancer. A year after a headlong plunge down some stairs killed more brain cells than Korea and the booze ever did, Pop wondered aloud if the engine would turn. The car hadn't budged since his fall. With a new Acme battery, 8 AC plugs, and a half can of ether sprayed straight into the car, she finally fired. The Galaxy groaned as I pulled away from the curb. Pop, watching through the window from his wheelchair, closed the curtains. We lurched past St. Anne Church, rolling down the block to Bill's Bar for a last look at the old man's second home. I steered her north and headed for 3rd Street. The old gal building up some steam started to feel it. Pulling Pop's hard hat tight to my head, I pushed the gas pedal down as far as it would go. Thick black smoke trailing behind us, we charged the last railroad crossing at 70 miles an hour. Leaf springs screaming as we hurled towards the holiday lights a half mile up the road. All right, I got a little more time here. Let's go for another one. I've got number 7. Okay. You know, I work with veterans all the time. I work with young kids since 2000. I've seen everybody that's been through Afghanistan, been through Iraq, met with Desert Storm veterans, some World War II veterans. And this is part of my job, part that I don't like. Long, long day. Took forever just to get home. Crawling along IH-35 in traffic, I found myself listening to Leonard Skinner. He's a simple kind of man. I wonder if it's too late for that. Added another VA file folder to my collection of fallen heroes earlier this week. I don't know why I can't bring myself to send the folders to the warehouse. Nothing in them except checklists, forms, unrealized dreams. I just can't do it. The young veteran left us this past weekend. He was riding his Harley when a pickup truck failed to yield, turning in front of him. This was his first semester at ACC. He was enrolled in 2 motorcycle repair classes, studying to be a bike mechanic. Probably wanted to turn his avocation into a vocation. Survived a year in Iraq as a wheeled vehicle repairer. In a different time, different war, he might have been one of my wrenches. The driver of the pickup truck fled the scene. His widow called me this morning. Had questions about VA survivor benefits. I gave her the name and phone number of the county veteran service officer. We talked for a while. She said it was so unexpected. You left behind a young daughter. I can still hear the lyrics to the song. Be something you love and understand. Nothing simple. Nothing. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip this one, and I want to go to my last poem. This one's called Behind Me. Need to leave behind the grimy flak jacket, such a worthless garment, sick with sand and grit, ever rubbing raw the back of my neck. The smoldering mix of diesel fuel and burn pit refuse, acrid smoke hanging like a premonition over the base, the endless dirge of discharging ordnance. Remember instead a late fall afternoon, basketball's warm, ringing bounce, echoing clang of an errant shot off a loose rim. The dry wake of brunch leaves as I race shadows down empty avenue sidewalks, silently counting strides from street light to street light, chasing the plume vapor of my labored breathing, sprinting for home across Spencer Ballfield, bright with harvest moon. Now, I'd like to do one more thing. I don't really know what the rules are for things like this, whether you have to stay with your book or not, so since it's my first time, I'm going to break them. This is how I do this. You know, I see something, I think about something, I work it, and I put it down in the venue and I work it, and sometimes out of that evolves the poem. It doesn't always work, and sometimes it does. I wrote this not too long ago, and it kind of sums up how things are since I've written this book. Been wandering through old poems, searching for lost words, trying to find what it is that might have led me to leave them behind. Too late, though. The poems do not speak anymore. I know I'm looking for the wrong thing in the wrong place. Yet here I am, at the very edge of silence, sitting in a darkening room in a large house in the soulless Texas subdivision, listening to some old American standards on the Panasonic, drinking white wine, breaking the rules by using ice, counting the cadence of the clock secondhand. I have too much practice at that. It's only a matter of time, as is everything, before I go outside and look up at the stars. I know that they are not what they seem to be. Neither am I. I wrote once of owls, how quiet they are. You never know when one is in flight unless he announces himself. And so it is with angels. We wish for them, yet we can only imagine the soft sweep of their wings. I've written too of tiny birds in flight. I never saw them in Somalia. I only remember large birds of prey, unconcerned of the noise they made. There was a lesson in that, I'm thinking. Invariably, when the dunes do indeed loom large and the shadows grow, I think of all my brothers and sisters who shared such a fleeting moment in that land of hopelessness and despair. I especially wonder of those who did, in their own last moments, discern the descent of the angels. Well, that's all I have. Thank you very much.